The world of video game commercials is vast and interesting. Unlike other mediums, video games need to have more unique commercials. With a movie, you can just show clips and people will know what they're getting. But when advertising video games, you have to not only show what the game is, but also what it feels like to play and why people should buy it, conveyed in just a few minutes. So game companies had to really give it their all when making ads. And arguably, the era when game companies tried their hardest with commercials was the 90s. The 90s were all about being cool and standing out, and video game ads leaned heavily into that. And alongside the massive competitive console war at the time, it resulted in one of the most fun, unique, and iconic eras of gaming ads. You got ads like this.
16-bit sports action.
You can't do this on Nintendo. Genesis
Does.
Genesis
Does.
Genesis
Does.
Genesis does.
What Nintendo? Buy a 16-bit Genesis system.
And this.
Hey, plumber boy, mustache man, your worst nightmare has arrived.
Pack up your stuff!
Check it out. What do you think about that? We got real-time, 3D, lush organic environments.
Feel a little like your days are numbered?
I'm gonna have to ask you to leave.
You're hurting my elbow.
And of course, this.
Nintendo. It's for breakfast now. Nintendo. It's a cereal. Wow. Nintendo. Super Mario Jump. Nintendo. In a fruit flavored crunch. Nintendo. You just can't. Nintendo cereal system is a super part of this nutritious breakfast. Nintendo. 2 cereals in 1. Wow.
These ads define 90s gaming, and are still so iconic today. And arguably, the most iconic ad to come from that era was an advertisement for the brand new Nintendo 64 game, Super Smash Bros.
Me and you and me, no matter how they toss the dice, it had to be the only one for me is you. Happy together.
Something's gone wrong in the happy-go-lucky world of Nintendo. Introducing Super Smash Bros., where all your favorite characters go toe-to-toe in one 4-player star-studded Slamfest, only on Nintendo 64.
Back in the late 90s, Masahiro Sakurai was developing a new fighting game called Dragon King, with a new unique style of fighting gameplay. And when he showed it to Satoru Iwata, the Nintendo CEO at the time, Iwata knew the game wouldn't sell well, because at the time, fighting games weren't successful if they weren't tied to a pre-existing franchise. So he suggested to replace these faceless characters with some of Nintendo's biggest names, giving the game an unheard amount of name recognition. And from then on, the game would be Nintendo's next big system seller title, starring the most iconic characters gaming had ever seen. And Nintendo knew this game's release would be an event. So to match that eventfulness, they launched a massive marketing campaign to start hyping up the public for what was sure to be one of the 64's biggest titles. And they started out with commercials, and they needed their ads to stand out and fit the 90s aesthetic, while also showing what the gameplay is like and why people should buy it. And if you break Smash Bros. Down to the basics, it's about famous characters fighting each other. So, for the ads, they made that concept be the full focus. And that led to them making the famous ad we all know, showing Mario, Donkey Kong, Yoshi, and Pikachu dancing in a flower field while Happy Together by the Turtles plays. And Mario out of nowhere just dropkicks Yoshi, and all hell breaks loose. Donkey Kong just slams Mario's skull, then Mario and DK team up to beat Yoshi to a pulp. Then DK just yeets Pikachu into the stratosphere, Yoshi gets revenge and curb stomps Mario. Then Mario dropkicks DK like 50 times, and Yoshi casually sidekicks Pikachu. Then we get snippets of gameplay, and we cut back to see Pikachu being thrown into the sky again. Mario hits DK right in the stomach, then Pikachu gets thrown up and away again, and Yoshi just beats DK's head in with a massive hammer he had for some reason. And then the ad ends. This is a fantastic ad, and no wonder it's become so iconic. It's just laugh out loud funny, and it has a good bit of edge to it. At least for a Nintendo ad, they perfectly showed what the game is and sold it to millions from this ad alone, and they didn't even need to show that much gameplay. I'm honestly surprised Nintendo let this ad be so creative and kinda edgy. The ad turned out great and became one of the most iconic and memorable things to come out of Smash 64. And one of the things people remember the most from this ad is the famous costumes of the characters. Because they didn't just use any old generic costumes. Instead, they created entirely new costumes designed just for this ad, which were made by an obscure company called KCL Productions, who specialized in making Nintendo costumes for ads and other promotions. Pretty much every Nintendo costume seen in ads at the time were made by this one company, and they are honestly great at taking these 2D characters and making them real costumes. And they got their start with the Smash ad. And they weren't just going to stop using these costumes, especially after the popularity of the first ad, so we saw these costumes be reused in multiple future Nintendo commercials, even once for the GameCube.
The world a special place.
Everyone loves a sunshiny day.
We're gonna keep it that way. That's clean is better than dirty, and dirty's meaner than clean.
Let's all lend a helping hand. Mario can't do it alone. Super Mario Sunshine, only for Nintendo GameCube. Rated E for everyone.
They got some good use out of these, and practically defined Nintendo ads in the late 90s and early 2000s. And one of the most interesting things these costumes were used for was a tournament called Slamfest 99. Because the most popular things these costumes were from was an ad showing them in an all-out brawl, and with the massive success of this ad, they wanted to keep that success going, so they decided to hold a new special event to continually hype up Smash 64 and ride the former ad's popularity, where these costumes would go from fighting in an ad to fighting in a real-life ring. That's right, there was a real fighting match of Cirque du Soleil actors wearing the iconic costumes and duking it out with each other, and it was officially endorsed by Nintendo. It went by the name of Slamfest 99. The fight was held at the MGM Grand Adventures theme park in Las Vegas on April 24th, 1999, and the fight began with a massive audience. But the fight wasn't limited to people who were just there in person. No. The fight was also live-streamed to the Real Player G2, one of the first big live-streaming websites on the early internet. So this fight had an audience of tens of thousands. But even though they had so many people watching, shockingly, not a second of footage has ever surfaced. That's insane to me. Out of the massive audience watching, nobody thought to screen record it? Granted, it was 1999, most people didn't know what screen recording was back then, but still, for an event as big as this, tied to some of the biggest game franchises in history, you'd think there'd be some preserved footage. But nope. It's even more strange when you consider how just a few months after the event, you could watch a video of the fight on Nintendo's own website, as we can see from the Wayback Machine. But sadly, the video itself wasn't preserved. The only reason we know a lot of this info is because of a few decade-old internet news articles. Basically, all major findings from the search are from old 90s websites talking about it. One site even had a gallery of miscellaneous photos from the event, and while they are very blurry and low quality, they're the closest we have to getting a solid glimpse at the event. Later on, a YouTuber by the name of ʻSupersonic found an article about the event on IGN, but sadly, it didn't give us much more information. The search started digging deeper and deeper, through almost every gaming magazine and Nintendo fan site from the time, and just to look for any old articles that they might have, and nothing substantial was found. The most likely reason I can think of for this is that while Slamfest must have been a big deal, it might have just happened suddenly with not a ton of build-up, and these forums and magazines just didn't have enough time to write about it before it happened, and that's why a site like IGN did an article about it, because they were all digital and can make an article fast. And by the time Slamfest was over, these sites would have moved on to some other event. The only physical writing about the event was found in a book called The Ultimate History of Video Games, where it features a black and white photo of Donkey Kong in the ring. But even then, it's not 100% confirmed that this picture is even from Slamfest. But that was it. That's pretty much all the substantial evidence the search gathered. The search is still ongoing, though with not as many people as when it started. It's so strange to me that this event with characters from the biggest franchises in gaming, hosted at a popular amusement park, livestreamed to tens of thousands, could just disappear without a trace. To this day, we have no footage, only blurry, low-quality photos, and a random decade-old article. But there might be a reason why this event could go so under the radar. It's possible that it was deliberately hidden, and was made lost by the people running the event, because the event was all about gaming characters fighting each other, and just a few weeks before it took place, a major school shooting happened, and it sparked outrage on video games, and how they might cause violence. So hosting a video game-themed boxing match soon after wouldn't go over well, and I'm sure Nintendo had already invested so much money into the event, so instead of cancelling it, kept it under the radar, and a few months after the event, took it from the internet. It's a plausible theory. I mean, Nintendo Power didn't even mention it, and you'd think the biggest gaming magazine would talk about an event as big as Slamfest. Not to mention how there were reporters and people from the media present there, but no coverage. It lends some credibility to the theory that it was deliberately erased from the internet. But with so many people attending, some at least had to talk about the fight afterwards and give first-hand accounts. Right? Well, some actually did. We have a few first-hand accounts of certain things that happened during the fight, which I'll read to you now. So supposedly, Donkey Kong quickly knocked out Mario. Then Yoshi started punching DK, so DK swung his fist at Yoshi, but he ducked it, and the fist swung back around and hit DK in his own face, which gave Yoshi the advantage, and he knocked out DK with a spiny tail, all while Pikachu watched in terror. Then Mario went berserk, and single-handedly wiped out Donkey Kong, Pikachu, and Yoshi in one move, even though Mario and Yoshi were on the same team. But Mario tripped, leaving him knocked out too, leading to DK, Yoshi, Mario, and Pikachu all being knocked out, and the referee declared all of them won. And then for some reason the ref ate Pikachu's ear, and said it tasted like chicken. I don't know either. And that's all we know about the fight itself. And it's likely that these accounts are real, because the photos we have do somewhat match up with these stories. It's so weird that we have first-hand accounts, photos, news articles, but no videos of this. I mean, Nintendo themselves haven't acknowledged Slamfest's existence once since. The only time they've come close to talking about it was on a Donkey Kong plushie from the Nintendo Collectibles line, and it had a small promotional material on the tag that mentioned some blurb about it. And that's it. It's as if Slamfest never existed. But it's not like it's all lost. We've found multiple photos, articles, and even full descriptions of the actual fight. The only thing we don't have is footage. And we know that there is footage out there that many viewed, and it's entirely possible for that footage to be recovered. We know for a few months there was a full video of the event on Nintendo's website, so maybe some third party copied the video and hosted it on their site. Or maybe someone attended the event and recorded their own video, or maybe one of the many people who watched it as a live stream screen recorded it. Who knows? Those are real possibilities. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see. So, for now, a majority of Slamfest is gonna stay lost. I'm Calvin Benson, and thank you for watching an episode of Lost Media Legends.